Lucy and the Saturday Surprise by Melissa Kruger. Lucy woke up with a jolt of excitement. It was Saturday, her favorite day of the week. She ran into her brother's room and jumped on his bed. "Louis, wake up," she cried. "Let's go." She ran down the stairs, with a half-awake Louis following in her footsteps. Dad greeted them both with a big smile and asked, "Are you ready to go?" They jumped on their bikes and rode down the street to Sammy's, their favorite grocery store. While Dad picked up a few items for his famous French toast, both Louis and Lucy ran over to the candy carousel in the middle of the store. Dad looked around and smiled. "You can each pick one treat." Lucy circled the carousel, thinking about which piece of candy she would choose. A purple sparkle pop? A giant pink gumball? A red licorice twist? She walked around and around trying to choose. Finally, she decided. Sammy's Special Chocolate Square. Louis chose a lollipop with red and green and yellow and blue spiral swirls. They put all their groceries in the basket and headed home for breakfast. After breakfast, they pulled out their candy. Lucy opened up her square. It had melted on the ride home. More chocolate ended up on her hands and face than in her mouth. She looked at Louis slowly eating his lollipop. It looked so much better than the melted chocolate square. She should have picked the lollipop. Lucy washed her hands and went outside to play. Louis wrapped up his lollipop and went to join her on the swing. When they came back inside, Louis unwrapped his lollipop and sat at the table, enjoying his treat. Again. Lucy went in the other room and sat on the couch. She could hear him smacking his lips. Slurp, smack, crunch. The sounds got louder and louder. It's not fair that he gets to keep eating his candy all day long. I wish I had a lollipop, she thought to herself. She covered her head with a pillow to drown out the sound. Her dad came in the room and asked her to do a puzzle with him. "I don't want to," she mumbled as she walked out of the room. All she could think about was the lollipop. She wished she hadn't picked the chocolate square. As Lucy walked into the kitchen, Louis wrapped up his lollipop and headed back outside to play. "Do you want to come with me?" he asked. "No," Lucy snapped as she sat at the table. "I just played with you. You can play by yourself." Louis walked outside with a hurt look on his face, and Lucy was left alone with the lollipop. The lollipop looked so good. Lucy thought to herself, "I'll just move it to the counter so I don't have to look at it." She picked it up and she could smell the sweet strawberry flavor. The lollipop smelled so good. She put it closer to her nose. She couldn't resist. She took a bite. The lollipop tasted so good. At that moment, Dad walked into the kitchen. "Why are you holding Louis's lollipop?" he asked. "Oh, I was just wrapping it up so it wouldn't get dirty," Lucy said, hiding what she had done. Dad looked at her with an eyebrow raised as she quickly put the lollipop on the counter and ran upstairs to her room. She shut the door and crawled into her bed and pulled the covers up over her head. She felt terrible. The lollipop had tasted sweet to her tongue, but now she felt sick to her stomach. She heard a knock at the door. "Can I come in?" asked Dad. "Yes," Lucy mumbled from under the covers. "Are you okay, Lucy? Is there anything you want to tell me?" She didn't want to tell her dad, But all at once, the words started to gush out. I was sad that I picked the chocolate square and it was all mushy and melted by the time we got home. Louis's lollipop looked so much better than my treat. I wanted to move it so that I wouldn't see it anymore, but then I smelled it and I took a bite. I thought it was going to make me feel better to have a bite of the lollipop, but I feel miserable. Her dad gently sat on the bed. Lucy, when we feel grumpy because someone has something we want, it's called envy. It follows a pattern. You saw something you wanted, then you coveted it, then you took a lick from your brother's lollipop, and then you tried to hide what you'd done. Lucy wiped away her tears and looked up at her dad with an inquisitive gaze. You said it follows a pattern? Do you mean other people have envy too? Yes. The Bible tells of many people who wanted things that didn't belong to them, and their envy led them to bad choices. A man named Achan in the book of Joshua saw some gold and silver, coveted it, took it, and tried to hide from God what he had done. We can't really hide our coveting. Eventually, our envy causes us to act unkindly or take something that isn't ours. I feel bad about eating Louis's lollipop. What can I do? Lucy asked. Well, I'm glad you told me the truth and stopped trying to hide. When you feel envy toward someone, it's best to confess what you are feeling to someone you trust. But I think you also need to confess to Louis what you did. Lucy and Dad walked downstairs and found Louis sitting in the den, working on a puzzle with Mom. Lucy felt like she had knots in her stomach. She didn't want to tell him. She finally blurted out, Louis, I'm sorry, I did something bad. I wanted the treat you picked today, and I took a bite of your lollipop. Louis looked at her with a surprised look on his face. That's okay, he replied. Is that what you were so grumpy about all morning? I would have given you a bite if you would just ask me. Lucy felt relieved. I'm sorry for being grumpy. I'd love to play with you. Can I help you with the puzzle? Sure. I just found a corner piece, Louis said. It goes right here, Lucy replied with a smile on her face. She felt better than she had all day. Lucy and the Saturday Surprise by Melissa B. Kruger, illustrated by Samara Hardy.